being a mother isn't a real job. It's one of the hardest jobs. Clearly something is wrong here. There's a reason why every society in history has the dual income household is the worst thing that has happened to society. And I'm gonna show you why that is. So let's just get into it. The first thing I want to talk about is this huge divide between men and women when it comes to their opinions on basically what they aspire for in life. And this divide grows pretty significantly politically, as you could probably imagine. There's this article here that talks about how Trump voters prioritize having children at a 34% rate. Harris voters that are men prioritize having children and marriage at the same level, 11%. Both of them are pretty low relatively, but that's a pretty big difference. When it comes to women, they emphasize having a fulfilling job and career at 51%, and marriage and children rank all the way down to 6%. For Trump voters, it's 20%. Which is kind of crazy that women Trump voters value marriage and children more than men Harris voters. Okay, so that's pretty interesting, right? But what really gets to me in articles like this is if you scroll down a little bit and read how they frame this situation. Gen Z women are increasingly independent-minded, career-focused, and unwilling to define their success solely in terms of family. This role reversal is radical, not simply because men and women now prioritize different things, but because it reflects the collision of gender and politics. Gen Z women are not merely breaking the tradition, they're openly rejecting the June Cleaver archetype of their grandmother's 1950s era. What even is the June Cleaver archetype? The June Cleaver archetype is a woman who had a, quote, typical American suburban family of the 1950s. A father who has a good job and is the undisputed head of the family. A mother who epitomizes the feminine mystique. And two smart, good-natured kids.
I'm triggered.
Their vision of success is expansive. It includes careers, financial autonomy, and emotional well-being, with marriage and children as optional add-ons rather than defining markers. Interesting perspective. Interesting thing to highlight there. It basically frames it as like a very exciting frontier for women to prioritize mostly their career. It's the first thing that she says here over marriage and children, right? First thing I want to point out is that we're getting a really positive outlook from the way that this is being framed. So how is this going for society, right? I mean, maybe this is a really good thing. I think a pretty good reflection of how society is going is looking at its birth rate. And as we can see from this chart starting in the 1980s all the way up to 2000s, you can see we hit a little bit of a peak in 2007 and the birth rate has plummeted over time. Not only that, but we can look at this chart as well. The interesting part is that the number actually stayed relatively flatter. So the total number is starting to flatline a little bit, but the actual per person rate is going down significantly more. And what that means to me is that the few people that were still able to have a single income are having kids, and the majority of people that have to both work are having less kids. But I mean, birth rate aside, I mean, really, who cares, right? Who cares what happens to society in the future? The important question is, how do women feel about this change, right? Prioritizing the family less and being able to focus on the career more. Well, let's start off with how women are reacting to being at work. Recently, we're seeing the rise in moms who want flexible work. When asked which policies would help most, college-educated married moms overwhelmingly prioritize flexible work arrangements. 85%. Flexible work arrangements, what does that mean to you? That means that they're able to work from home so that they could spend more time with their family. Followed by paid family leave, 83%. And child tax credits, 78%. I don't know, it kind of feels like women who have kids want to be at home with the kids. And what's interesting is that this differs between men and women. If you look at this one, for example, where it says 72% of women prioritize workplace flexibility options, only 57% of men do. Which, let's be honest, is still a pretty significant portion of men. But that jump is not small, okay? That jump is pretty huge. Let's keep going. How about here? In the US, more than 5 million jobs are available, but women continue to drop out of the workforce at troubling numbers. Far less than half of female employees, 35%, are engaged in their jobs. And nearly half of women say that they are looking for or considering new jobs. Okay, that's interesting. So only 35% of women feel engaged in their work. And if we look at this one, among women who are employed and do not have a child under the age of 18, 70% would prefer to work outside the home. So if you don't have a child, then 70% of women would prefer to work outside the home, right? At an actual workplace. That number falls to just 40% for women who do have a child. Okay, and specifically under 18, but still, that means that you most likely have a child at home. That's a pretty massive jump, right? That means that women have a general understanding that working outside of the home is fine, that's what they're supposed to do, so that's what they will do. 70% is a large majority. But once women have kids, they realize that they might love spending time with their kids. And the jump from 70% to 40% is telling that story, that women want to be home with their kids instead of slaving at work all day. Let's look a little bit more into how satisfied women are with their jobs. If we just Google it, I think what's crazy is you'll find completely different reports. This one says job satisfaction and gender. Why are women so happy at work? 1997, right? I don't even know why this came up. This is the first result. The one right underneath. Women are less satisfied at work than men. Oh. Okay, so which one is it? Well, this one's in 2024, so that seems a little bit more relevant than 1997. If we actually look into that one, it says, for the 7th consecutive year, women have significantly been less satisfied than men across nearly all areas of job satisfaction. This gap emerged in 2017 and has been widening in recent years. What's super interesting is this next section, which says, this data comes at a surprising time. Overall job satisfaction is at an all-time high, okay? An all-time high. But there's a huge gap between how satisfied women are at work and how satisfied men are at work right now. Oh, that's a little bit weird. That's a little bit odd, a little bit funny, a little bit of funny business going on. But surely that can't be reflected anywhere else, right? Well, unfortunately, and this might shock you, ever since the 70s, men's happiness has gone up steadily and women's happiness has gone down. Now, to be honest, I have no idea why men's happiness is higher than ever. You would think that they both would be lower because things have been pretty rough overall in the past however many years. And maybe that is the case. This study isn't that new. But clearly something is wrong here, right? And I think what's getting worse is the fact that more women and men are working. The work arrangements of mom and dads who are married or living together have changed considerably in recent decades. As of 2025, just over half, 52%, of different sex couples with children under 18 consist of 2 full-time working parents. This is up from 46% a decade ago and 31% in 1975. So 52% of couples with children are working full-time. That is crazy. We literally just passed the threshold. So at this point, there are more families that are working full-time than aren't. Okay? And what's really interesting is that this disparity grows as you become more educated. You think if you made more money, you'd be able to get a good job and afford having only one parent at home and one parent working. But the thing is, that's not what we're seeing. What we're seeing is that people who have some college or less, so the way you read these is that this dark blue line here is the percentage of both parents working full-time. So some college or less, the year 2000, 46% had both parents working full-time, and now it's 43%. So it actually dropped. The dark yellow line is when the mom is at home and the dad is working. So if you look at some college or less, you see it dropped by 3%, which is kind of crazy. But a bachelor's degree went up 6% in the past 25 years. And not only that, but if you have a postgraduate degree, so like a doctorate or a master's, it went from 59% to 69%. Nice. That is insane. 69%. And the anybody with like a master's or above dropped in the amount of people that just has the mom working at home. 11%. That's crazy. So they're just banking in. No wonder there's so much wealth disparity. These people who are highly educated are banking on dual incomes of high-paying jobs. That is mind-blowing to me. I would have never thought that before, but here we are. And what I want to ask is, how did we get here? How did we get to this point? And before I do, I just want to say a couple things to get this out of the way. One, the best thing that happened here, the best thing that came from this, our current situation, is that, and I'm being 100% serious, is that women are able to be in positions of power and it's not weird. It's not like looked down upon or something. It's normal now. And I think that's awesome because to me, the best thing that we have in society is choice, is freedom, right? I'm American born and raised, right? But seriously, freedom is an amazing privilege to have, and we've lost freedom by having the expectation of a dual income household. You basically have to be a dual income household these days to be financially stable. I mean, look at this chart right here, which I forgot to show earlier. So this is charting people's financial situation based on their work arrangements. So if both parents are working full time, again, the dark blue line, actually that might be green. If that was green the whole time, whatever, but I'm gonna call it blue still. This dark blue line, oh dude, that's totally green. What color is that? Why did they choose that color?
I'm triggered.
No, I'll call it blue. This dark blue line means positive, so it means that they are doing well financially. The dark yellow means negative. The crazy thing here is that when they're both working full time, their financial situation is the most positive. But this area down here, their children's well-being, if they're both working full time, they report that their children's well-being is 50% positive, okay? And 22% negative, which is like so sad. And if the dad is full-time and the mom is not employed, 85% of families say that their children's well-being is positive. 85%. No wonder the birth rate dropped. Like, are you kidding me? If your children are not doing well, if they're driving you crazy, if you can't even spend time with them, of course you're not going to want more children. If any children at all these days. I mean, you meet your friends that are also a couple and they have children and you're like, ooh, that seems rough. Look at all the shit you have to deal with. But in reality, it's because they are stretched thin from having to both work. So back to what I was saying earlier, I value freedom significantly. And the reason why this makes me so upset is because women lost freedom by having this arrangement. I think ideally we have a single income household and either the man or the woman works. It doesn't have to just be the man. The problem is that they both are working. And now that's such the case that the market has adjusted for a dual income household. For example, there are only so many houses. So if you have an individual income and you go to an open house and you're like, oh, this is a really nice house, I'm going to put a bid on it. And two other couples go and they also put a bid on it. But those two other couples are dual income households. Who's going to get the house? Who's going to have more money to pay for the house? Probably the people that both work, because they could virtually have double the income that you do. And so my theory is that this just happened over time where more and more people had dual incomes and it drove up the price of everything else because now we have the expectation that every household has more money. And generally, there's trade-offs there, but the core issue is that now you have no time to raise kids. You pay somebody else to raise your kids, and we'll talk about soon why that isn't even a great idea within itself. But anyway, how did we get here, right? How do we get here? So this article is about women who prioritize being a caregiver over their career. And you can see down here her talk about this quote, "You're a traitor to the cause," where the cause is, in this case, feminism. There is a naive assumption that equates my role today with the stereotype of a 1950s housewife. High-powered, successful women like the late Elizabeth Wurtzel pepper the mainstream media with claims that being a mother isn't a real job, which is a freaking insane quote. Like, how much do you hate humanity to push that narrative that being a mother isn't a real job? It's one of the hardest jobs. And it's not only one of the hardest jobs, it is like the most important job because you're raising the next generation that is going to be in society. It is like the most important job, being a mother. And the reason why I specifically mentioned that being a mother is the most important job, being a father is an extremely important job, but it's not the most important job. A mother has a much stronger connection to their child than a man does. I think it's completely natural. I mean, women carry the child and they're able to feed the child with their own body. You don't think that that would give them a stronger connection? There's studies that have shown that women will wake up in the middle of the night from the baby crying, but men will wake up from, environmental dangers like leaves rustling in the window or something like that, and women will stay asleep. There are natural tendencies for men and women. There's a reason why every society in history has randomly had men be hunter-gatherers and women being caregivers. And out of nowhere, we're just like, let's just change that. And it's so bad for women that I think it's worth claiming that being a mother isn't a real job. Again, you hate society. Like, you hate humanity. Congratulations. And you know what? The people who say this are the least happy people in the world. Look at this chart that says young adult happiness is falling. Married couples were at 91% pretty to very happy, and now they're at 90%. Pretty to very happy, okay? So married couples are pretty consistently happy. Non-married couples went from 83% in 1980 all the way down to 68% in modern times. And that is crazy because who are the people that are the loudest when it comes to this stuff? The people who are unmarried and miserable. They don't have their own kids and they're looking for a purpose in their life that they can't find. I will be the first to tell you, because I didn't even mention this so far, you could probably imagine. I have a child of my own. And you know what? It's a great thing. It's the best decision I ever made in my life. And I didn't expect that. I was extremely, extremely nervous about having a child. Like, genuinely. I kept thinking so many things that I've heard growing up, like, children are gonna hold me back from doing what I want, my hobbies that I like, being able to go on vacation wherever I want, being able to chill whenever I want. And it's like, it's crazy just how selfish that mentality is when you have a child. And it's seriously, it's the best feeling ever. And I seriously, I was not expecting that. I didn't even really like kids before having a kid. And now I look at other kids with their parents, I'm like, oh, that's so sweet, right? It's so sweet to see a family. And it's crazy. It completely rewires your brain and you realize just how amazing it is. And my wife has said specifically, I could not imagine going to work and leaving our child at home. It is like the saddest thing to me. I could totally see it. I could see it in her eyes, you know? The thing is, like, I feel very similarly. A lot of men say, oh, like, I don't want to work either. But at the end of the day, at least personally, I can't speak for everybody, I feel a great sense of gratitude being able to go to work and come home and provide for my family. It makes me feel like a man. And that's another big thing why I feel like you can see a big divide in the political spectrum when it comes to the left and the right, where the left is extremely unhappy and the right is getting more unhappy too. I didn't pull up statistics for this, but I think we're all aware of this. And this is not to say that I'm like knocking left politics specifically, but I think a really big reason for many people being so unhappy on the left is just that they don't have a life purpose that comes naturally when you have kids. Super famous quote is that you'll never lie on your deathbed and say, man, I wish I spent more time at work. You just won't. But here we are. Now we're doubling the amount of people that have to experience the drag of everyday work life. And you come home and both parents are so tired, they have no time to pay attention to their kids or even make more kids, right? No time for the bedroom. So it's just sad. It's super sad. And the reason why I'm so passionate about this is because I think it has caused the worst effects in society possible. Our birth rate is dropping, which means that we won't be able to sustain a healthy society. And when we are having kids, we're neglecting the hell out of them because we're too busy working. Or often they're being raised by somebody else because you're taking them to daycare, which is crazy because the last thing I'm going to show is if you look at the daycare costs. So I live near Chicago, so I looked up the daycare costs in Illinois. It ranges from $7,200 to $28,000 a year. Now let's look at the average woman's salary in Illinois. So in the worst case scenario, you're making $1,000 a year. You're working for nothing if you have kids. So I feel like that's a lot of the reason why people are just choosing not to have kids in general. It's too much money, right? And it's completely understandable why that's the case, especially if your mindset is, I need a job, then you're basically paying for daycare. Anyway, all that to say, I feel extremely strongly about this issue, and I think you should too. We should not be expecting this as a society for the rest of time, because we're not gonna have a society anymore if that's the case. Our birth rate is dropping, and it's not gonna go back up at all unless we address this specific issue, unless we allow people to spend time with their kids. And I don't think the way to address it is by forcing people to work and then paying them to spend time with their kids off work. That's a much worse trade-off than we had before, not too long ago. Like seriously, not long ago at all. Remember, we are in the year 2025. That is 2,000 years of progress, okay? And we just got to the point where now both people are slaves to corporate society. So anyway, that's my rant, big rant today, but I hope you guys liked it, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. I appreciate you watching, and yeah, I hope you have a fantastic night. Bye.